Photography Daily is a Loading Zone production.
No, it's not interference. It's not static. It's running water. I'm just next to a lock along a stretch of the Kennet and Avon Canal, which of course you'll know I absolutely adore taking my walks along. But I'm a bit further west on this stretch today. I'm Barneyless. Sir Barkalot couldn't come because I have a meeting after the Photowalk today. Another one of those places where you probably couldn't walk in with a dog. Oh, I brought my dog. Do you mind? No, sit down. But let me get a picture of where I am. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a stretch of the canal that's closer to a town called Hungerford, and then that sort of snakes around toward Bath and onward, I suppose, to Bristol. Let me get a picture for you. It's kind of an inny-outy day as far as the sun goes today. It's not very technical, Neil, I know. 1/60th F5. Let's just show the snake of this river. First sketchbook image of the day. Here we go. One more for luck. Well, one more of the many more for luck on the walk today. Now, I know I talked a couple of weeks ago about only having 3 television channels growing up, which some of our audience, I'm particularly thinking of my American friends, will say, "What the Fingles? 3 channels? You're joking. Surely not." But yes, 3 channels. And I'm sure 2 of the 3 used to close down overnight as well, so there was Zippo overnight to watch. And sometimes during the day as well, the television channel, or channels, certainly BBC One and BBC Two, I think occasionally during the day would shut down for a while, like a television siesta. And so you had nothing to watch overnight, unless you liked static interference, hence the noise just a moment ago. See, I try to weave this all in. On ITV, or the test card that showed on BBC One. If you were particularly taken by watching men in brown corduroy trousers doing long lectures about things you couldn't understand, you were treated to the Open University on BBC Two overnight. See, there was something on overnight. Honestly, really. No, did anybody watch the brown-trousered corduroy prof on BBC Two? Surely not. Still, it wasn't all bad, I suppose. No, nobody suffered from sleep disorders with all that scintillating choice, did they? But the test card that I mentioned about, what's a test card? Well, the test card was a picture shown on the screen to help technical people, who probably also wore brown corduroy trousers, to calibrate television overnight and do other important things that only brown corduroy trouser wearing men could probably understand. The test card was a picture of a girl called Carol Hersey that was taken in the 60s when she was about, 7, 8, maybe 9 at most, sitting next to a chalkboard, playing a game of noughts and crosses with a strange-looking smiley doll called Bubbles to the right-hand side of the screen. It had a maniacal smile on its face, this puppet. But 70,000 hours across 32 years, Carol and her puppet, or her doll Bubbles, appeared, until somebody at the BBC said, why don't we at least do classic reruns of Westerns? And so, and that's what we had. Television. It was very exciting in my day. Having said that, we did have some must-watch shows. And one of those, which my mum and dad did not miss, was The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. 37 one-hour episodes of a man underwater, obviously, being undersea, diving and showing us things that we'd never seen before. It was proper childhood, what I call childhood shush television. What's that fish, Dad? Shush! I'm trying to hear what's being said. Oh, is the shark going to get him, Dad? Is the shark going to... Shush! I can't hear what the man's saying. Wow, look at that whale, Dad. It's huge. It's as big as a London double. Shush! I can't hear a word of what Jacques saying. Jacques Cousteau. Yes, classic shush television in our house. The legendary French explorer, scientist, and actually photographer, looking into worlds that really we hadn't seen before, as I say. Way before the amazing Blue Planet show. Unfathomable. See what I did there? Journeys into the depths which I found amazing. It was one of those, it was definitely also one of those, you can stay up a little bit later than usual, son, teleprograms, because it was educational. And in the days long before kids put down on a sheet of paper what they wanted to do as a job, being, I want to be a YouTuber or a footballer or an influencer. In the days when you used to write down, I want to be a train driver or an astronaut. And in my case, I put down a deep sea diver. And then I lost my enthusiasm for the sea a little bit because Dad let go of my arms when he was playing Skim the Child Above the Waves in Studland Bay in 1975. I took a lot of water that day. So I didn't come to diving, and I did have a go much, much later on in life. But my guest today, you're going to love. Based in Stockholm, where the waters are very cold, Alex Dawson is a commercial photographer who specialises in dive photography, telling stories underwater, beneath icebergs, in wrecks, and more latterly, the last couple of years, in caves, and also in sub-zero temperatures, which can, as you can imagine, freeze the breathing equipment through which you're connected with, well, living. But far from that making him in any way anxious, there's nowhere else he would rather be.
Today on the Photowalk.
I think for me it's turned into my meditation, even though it's my work that's happening in that state of mind, but it's very meditative to be underwater for me.
Stories of life told by photographers, and today those stories come from Alex Dawson, who's learned of the peace that being immersed in the ocean with a camera can bring. Also inspiration from the woodland photographer Simon Baxter, actor and writer Bernadette Russell, photographer of life Cara Mew, and patron Ryan Katsanis, and you. It's a unique, special kind of photography podcast made from and by the letters you send in, the thoughts you have, and the words from our special inspirational guests. Whatever you photograph with, be it a fancy new mirrorless Nikon or Nikon with underwater housing for those trips beneath the waves, or the Instamatic that was $16 when your dad picked it up in 1963, and it's worked ever since, so why move on? Or even that flippy out Samsung that in 2000 became the first phone to be able to make and take pictures at a mighty 0.35 megapixel resolution. This isn't a show that expects you to know who Harold Eugene Edgerton was, although the answer will be at the end of the show. It's about how we feel when we make pictures, what it does for us, what it does for others. And in that 6.6 billion people on this planet can make a picture today with something, there's a lot of us about to walk with on our photo walk today. In the mailbag then, coming up, a lesson to me in bivvy language. I'm always getting things wrong. To err is to be human, of course. And more stories of get off my land, stopping us from enjoying the wonderful sights of nature, loving the woodland, why skateboarding is just like photographing, personal inspirations, breathless pictures, some kind words for me to hide behind an oak from, and the house clearance that made a photographer. Shall we walk then? Checklist out. Go through this together. Coffee and Garibaldi's packed. Check. Boots on and laced. Check. Walking trousers looking good. Check. Spare batteries. Check. Memory cards or spare film. Check. Earbuds in. Check. Lens caps off. Let's walk. Would you listen to the bird life today along this river? It's very low actually. It's really surprising, worryingly low. Canals aren't always really deep. You can, I wouldn't like to try it because this bit's very muddy and not quite sure what's below the surface, and that comes up in the interview today. But in places you can stand, an adult can stand up quite comfortably in the middle. As I say, I'm not going to try that one today. I looked up on the mpb.com site some underwater housing stuff to see if the number one people for buying and selling used camera gear online would be trading that kind of kit, and yes, from time to time they do. You know, how could I possibly have doubted our incredible sponsors, mpb.com, a company that have so generously shown their faith and support in this photo walk project of ours, these walks that we make together, making our photographic imprint So if you're in the States or Europe and the UK and you want to add something to your kit bag, then go to mpb.com first, because the chances are that they may have quality used gear that's unwanted now by somebody else perhaps, but ready to be rehomed into your life and your kit bag, of which they also sell plenty of, by the way, in case, like me, you never have enough camera bags in your life. And that's the beauty of mpb.com, because it introduces you to the circular economy, which is, I think, one of the most precious ways that we can sustainably buy now. Not sure everything can be done that way, of course, but you'll be surprised by just how much can. My latest purchase on mpb.com, thought you might like to know, is the Fujifilm teleconversion lens TCL X100 version 2. Neil, don't start going all tech on us now. I have some travels coming up and I want to give myself some more options when it comes to the throw on fixed focal length lens, or the fixed focal length lens that I carry with me on my X100V. I've been meaning to buy one. I spied one only Monday in the UK store in good as brand new condition, but way less than an actual brand new one. So one more happy customer today, and I'll be using that on my photo walks. Thank you, mpb.com. Right, letters, 2 short ones and a picture story to start today's show. Quick first one from Mike Marin. Neil, good news. I've discovered that the little British food shop in my town of Oakville, Ontario, sells Garibaldi's. My photo walk checklist is now complete, including Fillmore cards. Regards from an X100F user. If you heard last week's show, you'll understand the Fillmore cards reference. You'll have to tune back to get that one. One from Gary with 2 R's, because it's important. Langton. Hi Neil, just a quiet word about Bivvy World, which I think after episode 300, you look like you might like to try. You mentioned you'd like to go bivvying. Yes, I did. Which, while sort of correct, and understanding what you meant, I feel I have to correct you. Really, the term is bivouacking. You bivouac with a bivvy bag in the wilds. Just thought you should know before you join any bivouacking clubs. Get the terminology wrong, get thrown out before you can even experience your first sunset and sunrise. All the best from Gary. Top tip, by the way, look at the ground for hints of what wildlife you might meet in the night or in the morning. It's not fun being woken up by a goat. They are usually very grumpy. Yes, I'm sure they are. See, I feel told. I like that people feel comfortable to correct me. It's like friends looking out for each other. Neil, don't say bivvying, you rank amateur. Don't get that wrong. Problem is, though, that, and there is a problem here. It's not a big problem. It's a very small problem in the great scheme of things. But Ronald Turnbull, my guest, called bivvying, and he's been doing it decades. So who's right? Look, I can get down onto a path here, and there's not a sign saying, get off my land, don't even look at my land. That's mine, don't look at it. No, don't you dare. That's my land, that is. Oh, it doesn't go very far. If I go right, no, let's stay with the canal. Right, Kerry Adams. Slightly longer letter. Thank you, Kerry. I thoroughly enjoyed last week's show. Found myself laughing out loud at your, here we are, get off my land story. I once had a local gamekeeper see me off his field, walk me all the way back to the footpath. Mine did too, Kerry, actually. It wasn't very subtle. He walked with me and it was that kind of like, I'm all right, I'm a big boy, I can walk this last bit. No, let me take you because I'm not quite sure you're going to get off my land. I'm really not. He came marching over, says Kerry, after racing down on his pickup truck, shouting, "What the hell are you doing?" To which I calmly replied, "I'm having a walk." There's nothing like stating the obvious to probably upset somebody more, is there? I'm having a walk. Don't be smart. I'm pleased to say he no longer gamekeeps on the land around us. Seems he's had a few run-ins with the locals. His nickname was Ratty. Well, he definitely had a ratty temper. Anyway, it got me thinking about the great late Faye Godwin, whose work I'm a big fan of. I'll try and remember. Note to self, link to that, Neil. Link to it. Faye was the president of the Ramblers Society between 1987 and 1990 and dedicated her Forbidden Land photography book to the Ramblers. She did an interview for BBC Radio 4's Desert Island Discs, and for those that don't live in the UK, Desert Island Discs, I don't know, the BBC Sounds app's a bit strange for this. I say strange. It's very prescriptive where you can download and listen. I know that to be true. But if you get a chance to listen to Desert Island Discs, oh, what a catalogue. Decades and decades and decades of fascinating people talking about their lives and picking out. We've talked about this show before. 8, isn't it? 8 favourite songs, and they get to choose a book and so on. Anyway, yes, Desert Island Discs. She appeared on it. I haven't heard that one. There we are. There's one in the catalogue I must look up. And she mentioned how English heritage, which is, I suppose it's a very important association really for looking after heritage sites in the UK. But, and this is a good point, how the English heritage was known for advertising things to death, as they do. Come visit, come see, come here, such as Stonehenge, and then they go and fence it off. How true is that? You can't get anywhere close to it now, can you? You have to be bussed in from a visitor centre. Faye's work forever inspires me, and I often find myself taking photographs of fences. One of her song choices on Desert Island Discs, get this, was Don't Fence Me In by the late great Bing Crosby. The lyrics are fantastic, and I thought of you on your photo walks. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Don't sing it, Neil. I nearly did. But yeah, thanks from Kerry Adams. So Kerry, first of all, thank you for the letter. Secondly, I've put your keep out pictures on the show page because I think they're quite powerful in their narrative, really, when you consider what we've been talking about of late. So thank you wholeheartedly for those. And there's a mystique to some of them. You'll understand when you go to the show page and have a look. And the Right to Roam really it's becoming a sort of side story on this show, whilst I'm trying to understand, obviously, the importance of ecology and respect it and the balance of nature. And the Douglas Ray short film Get Off My Land, which I did find while I was researching all this, has certainly got me thinking about being a bit more careful about the whole thing. I was going to put a link to the film on the show page, but it doesn't end very well. And it's quite graphic, actually. Well, is it graphic or is it... I suppose it's artistically graphic. Oh. Anyway, look, if you look it up and you find it, there's a couple of Pretender films around. Don't watch those because they're not very good. But if you can find the actual Douglas Ray short film, that's worth watching for the narrative of Get Off My Land anyway. But certainly the idea of having access to some of these magical places that are off the beaten track is one I'm going to continue to read about. Here's some words of inspiration from episode 261. Here's a man a photographer that's found himself on land that is private, but mainly because he seems to these days have found the right people to talk to. But not just private land that he walks, it's Simon Baxter, woodland photographer Simon Baxter, talking about the beauty of being immersed in a different way when you think about our guest later on, this time immersed in nature with a camera in the woodland, and just how much there is to photograph in the forest. You get a definite sense of how important it is for him when it comes to his recovery from mental and physical stress. And I just wonder if everything that sports a big "Get Off My Land" sign necessarily needs to be. The debate certainly continues.
There's lots of different forms of stimulus in terms of sight, smell, sound, but that's constantly shifting. So with every single step forward or step to the side, visually, aesthetically, everything's shifting all the time. It's chaotic. There's a lot to consume. So to try and make sense of that with the camera is quite a task, really. So it needs your undivided attention. So your thought processes start to shift away from the stresses of everyday life, away from pain. When something has such a profound effect and a positive impact upon your life, you become very emotionally invested into it.
Simon Baxter talking about the beauty of, I suppose you could say, forest bathing with a camera. Neil, forest bathing? Are you going all woo-woo on us? No, forest bathing. I suppose That's what I do. I may have a camera with me, but when I go into the woodland and I'm talking on this microphone to you and making pictures... Oh, a cuckoo. I was trying to get close to one of those last week. There we go. Are you up there? Let me walk quietly. See if I can get closer to him or her. Yeah, but forest bathing. No, forest bathing is something that I think we do, really, to some sort of extent when we take these photo walks. Have you gone? I think so, yes. I have a very relevant connection to Simon Baxter coming up in a moment, who, Simon started up photography when physically he was in a very, very tough place after a cycling accident, but it's not quite like that, but similar. Not quite, but similar. Neil, are you sorted? I think I am. Send your stories and pictures, by the way, and thank you for these emails that you've been sending in to studio@photographydaily.show. Studio@photographydaily.show. Now, we are a photography show, but more and more I seem to be receiving mails letters. We talk in analog, remember, letters from those that aren't necessarily dedicated photographers, even on a hobbyist level, but just like the idea of walking along, listening to a mailbag and hearing the stories and adventures of those who do make pictures. Because, as you know, we're not terribly technical here. So send your letters in to studio@photographydaily.show. 2,000 pixels on the wide side. But don't worry if it's a smartphone you're confused by the 2,000 pixel request. Just send me best quality. Don't let the email squash it. Don't squash me down. Don't squash me down, as Bing Crosby never ever sang about. Right, a new name to our friendship circle here. This is an interesting take for anybody who started photographing like Simon just a moment ago, because physically and mentally something has happened in their life, a trauma of sorts, or just life moving on, really. It's a letter from Reed Nikins. And Reed, I know this has been in the mailbag for a couple of months now, so I'm pleased at last to be able to share your words. Hi, Neil. I can't thank you enough, or I feel the red blemish of a blush coming on now. I can't thank you enough for your podcast. Once I heard it, I had to become a patron member to contribute to this community of friends I haven't yet met, and thank you very much. You're very, very kind. I'm all the way across the west coast of Canada land in the city of Victoria. I had a thought and I wanted to share it with you, and maybe some listeners may feel similar to me in this respect. In my teens and 20s, I was a skateboarder. Now, I know people who haven't been skateboarders may not know the extent that it can become one's identity, but that's who I was. Everything was skateboarding. I worked in shops, I made videos, I ate, I slept skateboarding. In my late 20s, my joints and feet decided that was enough. They were constantly in pain from years of abuse. I still deal with that pain today in my late 30s. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't skateboarding. Was I still a skateboarder? I've drifted from it for years now and kind of have an identity crisis. I tried getting into other things like web development and excessive long-distance running, but it was never ever the same. Just before March 2020, kind of BC, isn't it? BC, before COVID, I started playing with my father-in-law's old Pentax K1000. We hear a lot about this camera, don't we? I looked on YouTube for the basics and got pretty hooked immediately. I bought an entry-level Nikon 10 years before, but it was really gathering dust. But the time that lockdown gave me had me dive right into photography, photo walks every day for hours, making so many bad photos, but I never got discouraged. I had a thought once. I was walking around exploring the city. Oh, hang on, something prophetic is happening or coming our way. Photography, says Reed, well, it's like skateboarding. We would skate through the city looking for spots, a ledge here, a gap there. Everybody would do their tricks their own way on these spots. In photography, well, I walk around looking for places for a shot and try different things at each place, moving around, different angles. Skateboarding was, well, maybe a bit more social, but I can listen to Photography Daily, which is like going shooting with you, having a conversation. I'm glad you feel that way, because that's exactly that's the way I'd like it to be heard. I was listening to the skateboard podcast, called the 9 Club. Why is it called the 9 Club? This is going to be very obvious, isn't it? I should know this. Come on, Neil. Isn't it obvious? Oh, I can't be bothered to explain that to you. You should know that. The 9 Club. 9 wheels, 9, is it 9 inches wide? The ball is the 9 Club. Why? Why the 9? 9 little ball bearings inside? No, that can't be the reason. Anyway, the guest was Jason Lee on the 9 Club. Most would know him for playing Earl in My Name is Earl. Jason Lee was a very influential skateboarder in the 90s. And he then became an actor and then jumped into photography. As I live my life wondering about my identity, Jason said on the podcast, even if you don't skateboard anymore, your mind still thinks like a skateboarder. So you're still a skateboarder. And when Jason said that, I had a huge sigh of relief. I am still a skateboarder. I still see skate spots and I think, oh, look at this. My skateboard now, though, is a Fujifilm X Pro 3. Much easier on the joints. And I found myself in photography. Finding a community in photography has been a little harder, but that's where you and your podcasts come in. Oh, I see. Right. I'm still so very new at photography and making all the mistakes that I'm making, but I'm having a damn good time doing it. So thank you, Neil, truly. No, thank you, Reed, truly, with a capital T. Let me just... sorry, I've broken away from the mail for a second. Dotted along the canal, I've talked about these before, are all these amazing pillboxes, which were part of our defence should invaders come down our riverways. This is a huge one, this one. Let's get a picture of it. Now, scale is going to be an issue, but fortunately there's a fence running alongside it, so it gives you a sort of idea of the size of this particular defence. Sun's come out. Oh no, it's just gone back in again. 1250 shutter speed, f5. Oh, a bit dull now. It's really nice when it was lit up by the sun. Is that cloud moving across? Oh, it is. Give me a couple of seconds and that sun's going to appear again. Let me frame up a shot in the meantime. I've got a wonderful old bridge along the way that goes over the canal. And I'm chasing the light as it's coming down the towpath, coming towards us. Here it comes. Come on. It's lit the bridge up nicely now. And 3, 2, 1. Bang. Shutter speed 2500 now. F5. Wonderful. You see the path. You see the pillbox. This defence. You see the bridge in the background. And there is a little path here to get down to the river. But Get Off My Land, who clearly realises this is a footpath, has thought, oh, let me just let the nettles go wild. Nobody will be able to get on my land if there's too many nettles there for them to get through. God, this is huge, this pillbox. Right, if I walk around this side on the towpath, this enormous pillbox, this is where the gun emplacement was, sort of poking out towards, the west going east. But this side, it's really hidden by the vegetation. The sun shines still beautifully on it, so let me get this side. Another one of those. Very well camouflaged. That would have been a bit of a surprise. Most certainly. So where were we? Oh yes, I'm still very new at photography, making all the mistakes, but I'm having a damn good time doing it. Thank you, Neil, truly, from Reed. Well, Reed, a couple of things. I love that idea that if your mind thinks like a skateboarder, you are still a skateboarder. And I suppose it very much plays into how I felt when starting any of my podcasts up, especially this one. I've always felt a bit like I've always felt like a broadcaster, since that was my job way before photography. And I still think like one. I still write and I still play like one. So perhaps I still am one. Secondly, I love the pictures you sent in, which I will share. And then I wanted to to tell you too that I have written to Jason Lee, who you mentioned in your letter, with your story, funnily enough, and I've asked if he would come on to the show. Maybe he'll say yes. And I'll share your Instagram read on the show page today. Thank you so much for your letter. Send yours in like Reed did to studio@photographydaily.show. The sound of running water once more. Well, it is a show about water today. Neil, come on, I need the bathroom again. I've arrived at a restoration project here. It's restored years ago. Druitt's Weir. What does it say on the board here? Canals rely on a consistent water level. Too much and the water overflows. Too little and the boats can't move. Druitt's Weir was built to allow surplus water in the canal to be carried away to the River Kennet. I see. Further down the way, there's not enough water at the moment. Further down the way, there were a couple of barges that were moored up and listing heavily because they were moored up, and obviously the water's gone down and down and down, and the owners can't move them. They're sitting uncomfortably at the moment, having breakfast, sliding plates towards each other. Anyway, this isn't a programme about the canal system of England. Interesting that would be. That's a whole new podcast. If ever I have a chance to... Here we go. We're in Lotto World again. Oh, what is it this week, Neil? No, it's something very simple. A barge. You and I could own a barge, couldn't we? Yeah, we'll invest in one together, and then we'll have a podcast that just sails the length of the huge canal system that we have in here in the UK, talking to interesting people and taking evening walks to the local inn. That sounds a perfect way to spend a year. Neil, I'm in. Where do I sign? What should we call the boat? The SS Podcast. I'll leave that with you. Ruminate. Right, to my guest this week. After last week's lineup of 4, I thought we'd go a little more in-depth. Oh, can you see what I've done there? Oh, Neil, please stop. It's like the end of a television news broadcast. We'd go more in-depth with this one this week. We're going to hear Alex Dawson's story in 2 parts. Part 1 in a moment, and Part 2 following nearer the tail end of the show. I personally do have a fascination for diving, which comes out a little within my conversation. Not a lot, because it's about Alex, not about me. But my conversation with a photographer who is the most incredibly modest force in a sport, and well, certainly in a photographic discipline. His pictures are outstanding. I learned about Alex from a letter received from Henrik Askling from Swedenland, our other listener. Let me read you his words. Hello, Neil. Hope all is good and everything is going well with the podcast. I'm a long-time listener and really enjoy each and every episode. Well, you're very kind, Henrik. Thank you. I've been scuba diving for a couple of years now, and I've been thinking about bringing my brand new Nikon, depending upon where you are in the world, with me on one of my future record ventures. It's a lot to think about, though, like protective casings, lighting, optics, and so on. And then to safely dive at 100 feet plus depth with all this gear brings a whole new dimension of challenges to the endeavour. Note beside, as they say, 100 feet is around about 30 metres. Just in case you're right now trying to do the maths and coming out with 100 feet being 3 fathoms and a mountain goat. Anyway, Henrik writes, I came across a fellow Swede who takes beautiful professional photographs underwater. If you are looking for an underwater angle in one of your episodes, I can highly recommend this guy, Alex Dawson. His work is stunning. Yes, you're right. That link to his Instagram will be on the show page today, and his website will be on the show page today. And I went and looked, and I would say I went down a rabbit hole for an afternoon, bar the fact that the Warren would be well and truly flooded, of course, given the subject. Alex's work is just stunning, and it takes me into that wondrous world once more that I described about when I was talking about Jacques Cousteau right at the head of the show. Now, for this interview, you may need a little help with some lingo. The wind's really getting up, so let me walk a little bit further on, past the lock, past the weir here, and I shall shelter myself within this bridge. So yes, for this interview, you're going to need some help with some lingo. Now, I know you probably know all this, but for my other listener who hasn't got a Scooby, or in this case scuba, some words to listen out to or for. Buddy. Now, this is the person you take with on a dive. Safer in pairs, always. They're also there to lend you the regulator if you run out of gas. Gas. What you breathe. Not literally the stuff you use to boil eggs with, but the air, CO2, nitrogen, neon, helium, and other more complex mixes when different, more advanced deep dives come. See the man wearing brown corduroy trousers on BBC Two for a lesson in that one. Regulator. What you shove in your mouth that gives you the air of life, as I'm now going to call it. They work in 2 stages, but let's not go there now. But if you hear stage 1 and stage 2, that's part of the same kit. Tank, the thing that holds the air of life. Free-flowing. Now, this is where the regulator, you're keeping up now, aren't you, that you breathe from, decides to misbehave and just leaks gas quickly. Decompression. When a diver is required to make, now I did have to write this bit down, to make 1 or more stops during their ascent to give their body time to safely release the nitrogen or other gas like helium that dissolved into their tissues during the dive. Otherwise, you get all kinds of medical emergencies that range from, well, mild discomfort to finding out if St. Peter ever tried breathing gas underwater. It is, though, very, very serious stuff, decompression. So that's when you're coming up and you do it very slowly. Stand by for this one. Rebreather. What, Neil? What? A breathing mask that absorbs the carbon dioxide of a diver's exhaled breath to permit the rebreathing of the unused oxygen content. Neil, are you wearing corduroy trousers all of a sudden? In essence, what that means is it's a big mask that doesn't throw bubbles out. It's actually a very silent way of diving. Where probably you learn that for years and years you've had tinnitus, but it's a way of staying on the bottom longer, much longer. Lighting, well, it used to be all flash, but now constant light sources you use. Well, at least that's what Alex uses, and you'll hear Alex sometimes refer to strobe, sometimes as lightning, which is a pretty good description for the kind of explosion of light that makes some fish a little bit grumpy, I would imagine. And I think that's about it. I think I can safely say that's the first glossary we've ever used. But if there's anything else, I apologise. But from memory, that's about as technical as it gets. That's enough for me, Neil, I know. Now, 71%, this is important, 71% of the world is covered in water. That's a lot of the world to explore and photograph. And I tell you what, get off my land won't have been down there to fence it off and get all territorial with his Land Rover and collie dogs. Besides, I dare say he's never tried to hammer a sign underwater. So yes, let's talk diving today and then the photographing of it. Here's part 1 of my chat with Alex Dawson. Alex, your story starts in Crete as far as the diving is concerned, and I'd like to know a little bit more about that because it's certainly warmer waters than many of the places that I see you dive in now. I think you were 19 years old, weren't you, is what I heard.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, I was 19, but it wasn't diving I started with free diving there. Right. So it was my first experience in underwater world, basically. The diving started about 3 months later. I was so happy to just breathe underwater. I didn't care if I saw anything. And actually, we were diving mostly inside the harbors of Stockholm, and the visibility was like 1 to 3 meters, brown water, pitch black already at 10 meters. We could just lay and look at the mud at the bottom, and maybe you would see like one little fish or something, and you could look at that for 10 minutes, and just the breathing, floating through that darkness with just a little torch in your hand. that was enough for me for the 50 first dives.
I think that's it is very different to many people's experiences of first diving, where it's often learned on holiday in warmer waters. I know from my own slight, and I say that with a capital S, experience, that I want to see what's in the water. I have to see. I really need to see what's possibly around the corner, as it were.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I'm more like you today. If I don't see anything on the dive today, I'm very disappointed with the dive. I avoid dives where I know I won't see anything. Yeah. But at that, back in the 90s when I started, I was totally fine with seeing nothing. It was just putting my head under the water, just experience something together with your dive buddy, shining your torch at the same thing, coming up after the dive, talking about the 40 minutes you just spent underwater, seeing maybe one fish and maybe one broken bottle or something, and that you could talk about that for like a day. Very.
Safety is obviously important. We're going to talk a lot more about that, but instantly you've mentioned the fact that you've always had a dive buddy. Have you ever dived alone?
I've definitely dived alone. I do not like diving alone. Many people like diving alone. I dive alone every now and then because sometimes you have to. Like when I was in Greenland shooting with my friend Anna, a free diver, we were there as a team and we were buddies, but she was a free diver, so she would go up and breathe, and that was me being left alone under the ice in the water alone. Of course I had a line to the surface, but you're still alone down there. There's 200 meters deep, straight under you, darkness. In that moment, I was definitely missing a buddy. Yeah. I prefer to always have a buddy.
So when you were with your free diver, how far down are you?
Yeah, I went. The problem is that it's negative -2 Celsius in Greenland in the water, and any regulator, it doesn't matter how fancy or how good they are, they will freeze. It's not if they freeze, they will freeze, but it's just a matter of when. Wow. And you have 2 separate first stages, so you can shift between the first stage. So when one starts freezing, you go over to the other regulator and you breathe in that one. And then the other one will slowly stop. If you didn't go too far, then it will start free floating. Then you have to go up to the surface. But when you get into a pace where you can go in between them every 2-3 minutes, keep your breathing down, the slower rate, the longer, slower breaths you take, the more likely it is that the regulators don't freeze. And the shallower you stay, the less airflow is through the first stage, which means also that they don't freeze. So I basically stayed shallower than 10 meters the whole time when I was shooting Anna. But I went to 20 meters at the most, and then it started free flowing immediately.
So the diving came before the photography. I'm intrigued as to when you first took the camera down, or first picked up a camera.
Yeah, I started, it was already the first year when I was diving. I was so fascinated by the underwater world. We went to a quarry to dive, and I remember, I really want to rent a camera this weekend. So I rented, and of course it was analog cameras back then. So you put a roll in with 24 exposure, so 36 or something, and it had a strobe attached to the camera. So you couldn't do the lightning very far from the lens, and shooting a strobe very close to a lens underwater, if it's slightly murky in the water, it just looks like headlights in a snowstorm.
It's soup, isn't it? It's basically soup, yeah.
But I managed to get one picture of my friend that was decent in this place. And that was like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then 2 years later, when I felt that I had the finances to buy a camera, I bought my first compact camera, but with an external strobe. And I had a wide-angle lens, a wet lens that you could put on and off underwater. So it was standard 35 mil, and then you could put a 17 mil on underwater, and you could also put a macro 2-to-1 ratio macro lens on also. So you could have 3 different angles basically underwater that you could shift during the dive.
I had no idea that was possible, that you could change lenses below. I thought you had to come up every time.
Yeah, I mean, normally with a DSLR, you kind of have to, but these days they're coming with wet lenses to those also. So it's, I think even on most cameras, you can actually have exchangeable lenses underwater where you maybe have a standard on and you put like a wet lens on top of it.
I grew up, Alex, and you might well roll your eyes when I say this name, because you're going to say, oh, everybody says that name to me, of a certain generation. but I grew up watching Jacques Cousteau on television. And of course, he was an explorer.
Yes.
Are you an explorer, or are you a photographer, or are you a diver, or haven't you even given yourself a label?
I wouldn't consider myself as an explorer. I'm the eye to the non-divers to show what the underwater world is like. I'm the gate to the underwater world for the people that don't dive. That's a little bit how I see it.
What a lovely way to put it. I know you're a commercial photographer too, an impressive portfolio of clients, by the way, Alex, but as I look through your work, they usually have some kind of feeling of being immersed in nature. There's an enormous amount of quiet in your imagery. And I think that's what defines you as a photographer, that you like this peace, this tranquility, this solitude even.
Yeah. There's so much negative in the world, and my photography, I'm trying to capture beautiful spaces, beautiful places. I've said it many times before. It's a phrase that I usually use, and that's like, I take a picture to create the feeling of the viewer. I wish I was there. I want the viewer to feel, I wish I was there. It's a happy place usually. It's like you say, peaceful, calming in maybe colors or in composition or just the nature itself. I like positive.
Yeah. Well, you create also these big universes, because I look into your, particularly your underwater pictures, and there's always a small free diver or another dive, but you make them so small in these vast landscapes underwater.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very inspired by many of the great photographers we have in Iceland that shoots these classical hero shots.
Yes.
Where you like have a mountain range or something, and then you have a tiny human in a corner, or like backlit or a silhouette only or something, so that it gives a perspective of the size of the mountains. Those images, to me, when you remove the human from that image, are not as interesting to me, because there is no sense of size. You have to have a car or a tree or a house or something that's man-made to get a sense of size. And that's kind of what I try to do underwater. So I basically shoot hero shots underwater, where I have to have a diver somewhere in the picture just to give the sense of space.
Scale, and the space.
And it's tricky underwater because you're limited by visibility, and you lose contrast through the water, and it's usually a very dark environment, so you need a lot of lights to bring. And it's usually, when we work in mines and caves, we're also at quite big depths, so we're very limited on time. And even if we have 20 minutes of shooting time, we might have 1.5 hours to get up to the surface after, just for safety in decompression and stuff like that.
Well, let's talk about the cold water diving, of which there's a lot of that in evidence in your site. On your site, rather. -2 degrees sometimes. We've talked about the regulators freezing. How do you prepare yourself for a dive that's that cold?
I've developed a technique lately. I just got certified for cave diving and mine diving about 3 years ago. And I've always had a problem because I'm quite thin. So I've always been fighting the cold a lot because I don't have so much insulation naturally on my body. But I developed a technique where I'm basically I'm cooling down myself before the dive. So when I'm preparing the gear ahead of the dive, I will basically just wear a sweatshirt, even if it's 0 degrees or something, no gloves, no hat, just to acclimatize myself to that temperature. Then after that, I can maybe go in and to a heating room where I can have something hot to eat and drink something, and just get changed for the undergarments before jumping in the dry suit. And then your circulation kicks in, because you've had this already cooled down, so your hands are freezing. Your body's kind of cold, but then your system kind of kicks in. You get a little bit of food, you drink a lot, and then I jump in the undergarment, and then I have this rush of blood circulation going out to my fingertips, to my toes, everything. And then I'm usually fine. In 4-degree water is usually no problem. A bit over 2 to 2.5 hours without even freezing, I would say.
Pack ice is something that you say is always changing. I noticed that in your Instagram feed, actually.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful picture of two icebergs moving closer to each other, and you're photographing between them. But of course, you have to be very aware that they shift.
Those ones were frozen in, though. So this was frozen pack ice. It wasn't thick. It was probably just like 30 centimeters a foot thick ice, but they were fixed. So they were not moving, those particular ones. But just 500 meters further out, where the current was stronger, the ice was constantly shifting. And yes, they could start moving, but we had about 10 holes where we could go up in. So we had made a lot of holes before that particular dive, and so we had a lot of safety holes, what we call it. So we had a lot of options.
Well, let's talk about the kit you use photographically, because it's not just a case of putting cameras in housing. We've touched on, which I didn't know you could do, the wet lens change.
Yes.
But you have to appreciate how to light, because the water is not the easiest thing to photograph in. It can be murky, it can be full of plankton, it can be full of all sorts of things, can't it? Mm-hmm. And the lighting that you employ in your shoots is incredible. And we'll talk about the lighting within some of the cars, etc., that you find in the wrecks underneath, which looks great. But how do you go about, what do you use technically? What cameras through to lighting?
In general, I stopped using strobes in 2008 already. That's when I got my first, what I call off-camera lights, to powerful lights from a German brand. I don't know how strong they were, but they were quite strong for being 2008. And so I tried to illuminate with other divers, or I've also created a thing that I call the selfie light, which I created 2015, where I got tired of asking buddies because the guy that's being a light monkey and just lays like 10 meters over the wreck or over whatever you're shooting doesn't get to see much. No. And I got tired of asking people because I felt guilty about I'm spoiling their dives by me wanting to take a good picture. So I didn't feel okay about that. So I created this, what I call selfie lights. So I have a floater on my lights. Then I have a black cave line attached to the light, and I can let the light up. So when I come to a wreck, I can just roll out 10 meters of line, and then I get the light 10 meters above my head. And I was practicing that from 2016, and then I started showing the first shots around 2018. And now I see it's commonly used all over the world, actually. So people have definitely been inspired by my selfie light thing, I think. Yeah. Of course, the ideal is to have a diver being up there that can angle the light where you want it and so on. But if you don't have a paid team to do it, then you can't expect anybody to do that, really.
Well, let's talk about I mentioned the car deck, and I think that's an incredible picture. Because what's the boat that you're in, and what's the story of that ship that I'm assuming sank with this incredible cargo of trucks and cars and motorbikes, which are all still there.
Yes, so this is the SS Thistlegorm, which was a British ship, cargo vessel. I think it wasn't even military flagged, but it carried military goods. And the Germans found out about this, and they sent a bomb plane to bomb it, and they bombed the Thistlegorm and Rosalie Möller. It's a picture that I just published yesterday from the engine room of a wreck. So they sank those two wrecks, I think 3 or 4 days within each other. Yeah, both wrecks were sank very close to each other anyway, and also close in time. And the Thistlegorm is, I think, I can clearly say that it's the most dived wreck in the world. Right. I was working in Egypt in 97, and at that time we would be about 25 dive boats at the dive site every day. Wow. And it's so fantastic because you have all gear you can think of. There's like parts of airplanes, there's trains on the wreck.
I know.
There's trucks with motorcycles all stacked on the back of the lorries. There's like stacks of guns, rubber boots. I think there's even a couple of tanks, like a Sherman. There's 2 of those also, right where the bomb hit. but they're like in the debris there. So
do you not have to think about munitions if you come across munitions?
There's a lot of ammunition. There's some bombs on the wreck where you see the warheads is like they're 0.5 meter in diameter and stuff like that. But no, everything is it's not dangerous at all at this point. I think the ear is on the bottom, and then of course many of these things would require electricity to trigger, and or a hard impact on the back or something like that, which is not going to happen. It's 100% safe to dive.
So with all those dives taking place, though, you've managed to find and photograph something that's truly different. That's probably because of your lighting, the way you light from inside the trucks, and you illuminate this scene to make it look very ethereal. It's almost like, when I look at it, and I'm sorry to use a cliche, but it does feel like the Titanic shot in the famous James Cameron movie of the Titanic coming to life and lighting itself again. That's what your pictures look like to me, anyway.
Cool. Yeah, I actually watch extremely few movies, so I don't get inspired by Hollywood, which you probably would think, and I probably should. But I really try to find my inspiration just by coming up with my own ideas. And maybe I have been inspired, but since I have bad memory, I usually don't remember what I see. So. I just like creating a moody feeling. And trying to. It's about balancing the light also. Like many people try to do what I do, but they miss the balancing part. They put like way too much light from the left and too little from the right, maybe, and it just gets unbalanced, the shot. I think it has to be in harmony with the light. You know, we like sunsets better than shooting midday with the sun, for example, and that's a perfect example because in the evening you have the softer shadows exposure compared to the highlights are not so big difference. So it's just the softer, you have the long shadows because of the low angle of the sun. It just makes it more interesting. So you could probably say I'm creating a sunset light for a scene because that's usually very pleasing to look at.
And Alex Dawson returns for part 2 in a short while. Thank you for the letters, the stories that you send in. It's fantastic to read where you are in the world and see the pictures that you've been making on your own photo walks and your adventures. Send them to studio@photographydaily.show, 2,000 pixels wide, please, if you're technically so inclined, or if you're making pictures on a smartphone, just send them in best quality. Absolutely fine for me. Now, like many independent podcasters around this wonderful planet of ours, we have a Patreon page where some very special friends help support this show for the price of a cup of high street coffee or roll of HP5 black and white film a month. And to say thank you, I make an additional short diary-styled show each week, which you can only hear on the Patreon webpage, and of course the wonderful app that you can download onto your smartphone and log into, which I think is a great podcast player app. You can actually hear all the normal episodes on it as well, the free-to-air episodes. Plus, of course, that's a place to go to see the other articles that I write, the diary pieces. We have the script on there, and that's where the photographs are as well. And I think I'm going to take that behind the scenes thing to heart and share some of the pictures, the behind the scenes pictures from the photo walk as well. But that's on the Patreon app that you can download. And plus we have a meeting each month on Zoom where you share stories and pictures, some of which you see on the website on the picture post tab. And we have our episode called More on a Saturday. There are now 100 plus extra shows and bits to listen to or read, including, of course, our new midweek replay show of the interviews Unplugged. They are generally about photography, of course, but every now and then there's a slight diversion on our shows, particularly in More, and we cover other stories. And this week is going to be one of those where I talk to actor, and get this, you'll like this, kindness, I think it fits this show so well, by the way, kindness ambassador Bernadette Russell, who did a kind act every day for a year following her reaction to the 2011 London riots, which has led, and it really has, to an entirely new life. And I'm going to play you a conversation that we had on the the phone, which will lead to two things: a photographic portrait that I would like to make with her eventually, which I'll also audio record. There's an idea that's ongoing at the moment. And an actual photo walk through London, retracing the steps of where kindness became this new habit. But here's a few moments from tomorrow's More show, following a question which I asked about her quest for kindness being, well, is it affected by rolling news, which generally is not really a place to find a lot of positivity right now, is it? But it seems Bernadette has found an alternative even here. Not necessarily sugar-coated, no, but a different kind of take on journalism.
And I engage with and I subscribe to many magazines and newsletters whose focus is on solutions-driven journalism. For example, Good News Shared, Positive News, the Happy Newspaper. So I make sure that the news I receive about the world isn't just bleak and despairing, isn't just stories of what's gone wrong without any invitation to be part of the solution or to demonstrate those who are part of the solution. Because that's bad for your mental health, and also it degrades your hope. So
you can hear the first chat that I had, the phone chat, the sort of, I suppose, the setup for what comes later with Bernadette Russell. You'll hear that on More exclusively tomorrow. Also, I'd like to play you some words from one of our wonderful patrons, our supporter Ryan Katsanis, who I jumped on a call with recently to shoot the breeze, as they say. Oh, Dad, you're so embarrassing. Don't try and use trendy lingo. That's so old. They were using that in the 1980s. I realise that. But I was a child of I was a child of the 70s. Don't tell everybody. We chatted about inspirations. Me and Ryan did, so we did. Inspiring work and inspiring photographers. And I'll link to his chosen photographer that we talked about on the show page today.
I would say Joseph Kudelka is one of my biggest inspirations, because when I look at his work, it's what I aspire to when I'm doing my street photography. That's what I do for fun. That's what I've been doing for almost a decade now. I was fortunate enough to go down to LA a few years ago and see his photography in person, and I think that's what really solidified it. I think it was called Nationality Doubtful, or I think that was the title of the display he had, and it had about 100 images there. And that just, so many of his images are the ones that, you wish you could do. You feel like, and with street photography, so many of the greats, you're like, if I was in that same situation, I might have been able to get that shot, because it's not necessarily technically perfect. It's more the emotion and the vision, so it's always like that carrot dangled in front of you. You feel like your next shot is always out there. And so I love seeing some of the greats like that, because it makes me feel like I could potentially do those things.
Well, reach for the stars, as one of my favorite philosophers, the mighty S Club 7 once said. Anyway, my thanks to our fantastic patrons, and I'm really looking forward to our Zoom meet at the start of June. June already? June? Surely not. Yes, June. If you'd like to join our Patreon, you can simply by going to the website, all the W's, photographydaily.show. Then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll find an orange link. Oh no, a small bunny rabbit on the floor. Oh, I'm going a watership down on you again. Oh, I'm going to have to move on quickly. Oh, Neil, did you need to share that bit with us? Yes, it's a photo walk. I have to share everything with you. I tell you what, this is a lovely long path through the countryside next to the canal. Barney would have loved this. I wish he could have come to the meeting today. Rotten lot. What is it about meetings? Why don't meetings let dogs in? Neil, I think that's very, very obvious. Did you need to even ask? Thank you to those who've been sending in your... Oh, what's this? A jet black butterfly. Oh, gone before I can get a picture. Jet black. What would that be? Butterfly experts, please. Jet black. Oh, Neil, that's the butterfly of doom, that is. No, don't say things like that. We'll start believing Mothman. Give me the right gobby wobbles, so it will. Thank you to those who've been sending in the wonderful pictures for the Community 365 feature. I know I explain this every week, but we do have a new other listener join us every week. So if you're not sure what this is, it's on the website. It's a chance for you to send in pictures from where you are in the world and take part in a photographic 365, which is usually where you keep your own, either on Instagram or the various platforms that enable you to have a 365. Well, you could put it on a blog. It doesn't have to be a fancy platform. And it's essentially pictures of your life. 365 days of the year, which for some people can be a bit of a stress, keeping that going every single day. Oh, I've not done one. I can't go to sleep until I've done the 365. Middle of the night, you sort of do the picture in the bathroom. Oh, that'll be it. Picture of the toothbrush. That'll do. Nighttime toothbrush. 3 a.m. Yeah, so you don't get any of that kind of stress. You can take part in a 365 where we take turns in putting pictures up. So send them to studio@photographydaily.show. You can see those that have sent them in before. 2,000 pixels on the wide side, please, or best quality in smartphone form. And you can take part in our 365, which we started at the wrong time of year. And this week we hit the 100 to go stage. And I'm really not quite sure what we're going to do when we get to the 365, whether we sort of, stagger onto a new finishing line at the end of the year, which will be for something or other. I'm not sure. We'll see, as our parents used to say. Right, some picture collections on the show page today, which have been in the inbox for a little while now. You can see them on the show page. We're going to jump between 3 continents for this. Get ready for Warp Factor 3, Mr. Sulu. Was Warp Factor 3 actually a thing? Was it doable? Or have I overcranked the engines, Scotty? We start with our good friend Tim Binder, who sent me some colour pictures from a challenging photo walk, you could say. One that is literally breathtaking. Hi, Neil. On a recent trip to Wyoming, my wife and I hiked up, stand by, 11,051 feet. That one is very important. 3,368 metres, that is. That 8 is very important. Coming from 700 feet, which is 213 metres above sea level where we live, that is quite different and quite the challenge. Yes, I think it probably is, Tim. Our lungs ached and we struggled to get oxygen. Actually, we had to stop every 30 or 40 feet to rest as the walk got higher and higher. I'm living this through you now. I'm living it. But the view at the top was worth it. A 1 hour trip to go 1 mile, though, was exhausting. But absolutely worth it. I tell you what, get off my land wouldn't be going up there to put his signs up, would he? I can't be bothered with this, I really can't. They can walk where they like. Stay on whatever land you like up here, it's too high. I can't be putting things up here. I'm falling out of my pirate accent there. Move on. The pictures, says Tim, are from Medicine Bow Peak in Centennial, Wyoming. And you can see more pictures on Tim's Instagram. Fantastic. Thank you, Tim. Then let's jump whoosh to Europe, to Matthias Fox in Germany land. Hello, Neil. Hope you're doing well. I am, thank you. Listening to Simon Baxter in episode 261, which, of course, we've mentioned already today. This is like serendipity, Matt. It really is. Well, it inspired me to take my next photo walk in the woods. So here are some photographs taken in the western part of Germany. It doesn't look like one of the most densely populated and industrialized areas, does it? ? Matt, certainly not, no. And I tell you what, I love the light streaming through the trees. Proper lush, as they might say in Wales land. These are true I can smell the forest type pictures. They really are. Just wonderful. And they're on the show page today. And then we jump, a reasonably large continental jump, to this letter with a picture from Elisna Marsdorp in South Africa. Dear Neil, I'm from Cape Town in South Africa, working as a researcher in tuberculosis. I found Photography Daily a few months ago when I was researching which camera to buy after my 8-year-old Canon was stolen end of last year. I do hope somebody out there is using it for something worthwhile. That's very generous of you to think and hope like that. You must know Bernadette Russell. I feel I may write in future about other things and share photo walk pictures, but today I'm just writing out of thankfulness for the podcast. Now, a listener, at this point in time, I'm breaking away from your letter to say thank you for the lovely things you said about the interviewing and the sound design, the sensitivity and the flow, and a few other things that, I can't read out because my Englishness would implode. But thank you. You're very generous. I was blushing. Or was it the sun striking my English pasty face too much over the weekend? Anyways, it was really the title of your email that really drew me. And it was, I see you there in the afternoon sun. Practically like poetry it was. I'm sending in a picture, wrote a listener, that I took today at work in a place I spotted weeks ago as a photo opportunity. If I could just wait there for a colleague to walk into the afternoon sun in the opposite corridor. I'll call it, I see you there in the afternoon sun. And I'm going to propose that that's what this podcast is all about for me. People taking photos of scenes they see and wanting to acknowledge them as important personally and just trying to put into words why. Well, most of us probably already understand why on a level where words can't really go. I love how your guests echo each other and how much resonates with me too when they talk about what photography means to them. What a gift we hold in our hands and our eyes. Well, Elisna, I certainly looked up the pronunciation, by the way, so I hope I have this right, Elisna. Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for expressing what so many of us feel about making pictures. And you're right, photography is all about the patience. It's all about this deeply personal connection in a fraction of a second. An interest in something that's been enough to warrant raising that camera to our eye, or if you're using a phone, that phone just in front of our face. And it is, I think it is, you're right, it's a true gift. It is a true gift indeed. Your picture is on the show page today, the one that you sent in that is titled that. And your letter, I suppose, really needs to be followed by something pretty special, inspirationally, from a former guest. And I'm going to choose Cara Mew. And the reason I'm choosing Cara for this moment is, well, one of a few good reasons, really. Number one, it's one of my I know you're not supposed to have them, but it is one of my favourite moments in terms of storytelling. Two, it's a story about serendipity, brilliantly, I think, because Cara needed money for her first big camera purchase, and it was photography that delivered it to her in a roundabout way, sort of beyond the grave way as well. And number three, I just love Cara's sheer enthusiasm. It's something that is really, really precious in life. It's 2 minutes and 35 seconds long, just in case you wanted a clock time on it. But I hope you'll enjoy this story as much as I do. Cara Mew.
A family member, distant family member, said to me, "Oh, there's a house and it's full of stuff, and do you fancy coming to clear it out?" And I said yes.
Had you been working in house clearance then or something?
No, absolutely no, okay. Not at all. No, but what it is, everybody knows I love a car boot and I like buying and selling things. Yeah. So I'm well known in my family for finding a bargain and selling it on. And obviously this house was empty and it was full of things and they didn't want it anymore. So they said to me, whatever you want, you can take and you can do what you like with. So I ended up turning up this house clearance, and it was I found it really heartbreaking. I could never do house clearance as a job because I became so emotionally attached in this lady's life. I even dressed up in her clothes and I was sorting out her wardrobe, and I ended up taking her coat home with me. It's hanging in my wardrobe. But I became really emotionally attached to her. So as I was going through her things and bagging things up for charity shops and things that I wanted to take home, I kind of got to know her through her things, and it really hit me on how emotional it can be when you're gone, and the things that you leave behind is really, that's it, that was all that was there. And when I came to the last section of the house that I was clearing, it was a huge chest under the stairs. And the guy said to me, "Oh, it's just full of rubbish, there's nothing decent in there." But it was absolutely filled with photographs to the top. I spent about 4 or 5 hours going through them, and it had her wedding photographs in there, it had family, holiday, it had snapshots, days out, And from these photographs, I learned that she was a photographic apprentice in my local city, and she worked in a print lab that's no longer here. And at that time, it didn't really mean much to me, but I knew that the photographs were really important. So I ended up taking every single one home.
So you've got the pictures?
I have, yeah. I've kept every single one of them, yeah. I don't know what to do with them. I mean, I can't throw them out because that would be sacrilege. There's some that have got locations of the town in them in the background, which I think probably would hold a little bit of value for our local museum. So I will donate some of them to there. So I ended up keeping them all, became really attached to her as a person, never knew her. And it just so happened that after the house clearance was all cleared and done, and I took away the things that I wanted to sell or keep, and I'd sold them, I made almost to the penny the exact amount that my camera was.
Cara Mew. And I know I've said this before, but I definitely want to go and do an actual photo walk with Cara. I think it would be I think it should be a great guide around this fantastic town of Portsmouth on the south coast of England, or Portsmouth Land as we should call it. At the start of the show, we talked about being fenced in, didn't we? And I've just found a bit of a barbed wire fence. Let me get this quickly. Stop talking, Neil, get the picture. Yes, all right, because the sun goes in and out and in and out. But there's this just small section of barbed wire from Get Off My Land with some leaves just below it. They're the only two things that are being kissed by the light right now. I'm hoping that's going to come out. Yeah, see what you think. Tell me what you think. I'll put my pictures on the show page today, as always. Right down the bottom. I know my place in life. And while we're talking about Cara, you were, weren't you? Yes, I was. Her latest project, Pride Portraits, which you'll find on her Instagram, is a fabulous idea. Here's the brief, as it were. I'll read direct from her. Pride Portraits is a photographic project to work alongside local Portsmouth mothers to learn about and record their individual experiences on what brings them pride, either as a direct link to being a mother or simply as themselves. Yes, you can go and see that work on... there's only a few actually on Cara's Instagram, which I've linked to on the show page today, but do make sure you follow the link and go and see her work. Right, our second visit in a moment to my guest today, the incredibly talented dive photographer Alex Dawson. Before that, and as a follow-up once again to last week's moment where I did rather go off on one, didn't I, about this new character that we've got. Get Off My Land. Here's Ewan McNeil again. Hello, Neil. Thanks for reading out my musings on the show. If it's not too late, I've included some images taken on my cycle commute to work this week that might prove as an apposite accompaniment. The no-entry private driveway picture amuses me every time I pass it. The road in question is still actually a bridleway, so the sign is somewhat misleading, I'd say. Let's hope Nick Hayes wants to come on the show, says Ewan. Me too, Ewan. I'll pop your pictures up on the show page today. We're building a collection, I think, of Don't Fence Me In pictures, including my one just a moment ago, to go full circle from our opening letter, aren't we? And, well, if you're wondering who Nick Hayes is because you're listening out of order and you haven't heard last week's show yet, he is this strong voice trying to bring right to roam laws to England land. And, of course, many countries already have a grown-up approach to that. I'm going to call it a grown-up approach to this, such as Scotland and Sweden and Norway and whole parts of America and Canada, and the list just goes on and on and on. But so although yes, it is, I suppose, a more parochial feature, I will clearly do my best to draw out interest, so that it's of interest to wherever you live in the world. Still no word from Nick, but here's hoping. So then, I've just mentioned Sweden. A nudge in the right direction to hear the second part of my conversation with the underwater photographer Alex Dawson, who I guess has a definite right to roam, notwithstanding some countries who might get a little bit fussy if you wander into their territorial waters. But generally, it's a huge ocean, a huge playground out there, pictorial playground if you like, where Go Off My Land, in his pirate accent, has not been able to spoil the party with 1001 thou shalt not go here signs. Here is the concluding part of my conversation with the exceptionally talented Alex Dawson.
Alex, let's take a moment to talk about the logistics of photographing underwater. I would imagine you must have to have a language beneath the water, because you can't exactly shout out to somebody that, when you're placing lights, moving lights, you're bound to come across situations where you think, like we do on the surface, where we think, no, that doesn't work quite like I discussed during the meeting, so we need to move things. What kind of language do you employ to get that message to your team when you're 60 meters down?
This is again, like I said, that the team is super important.
Yeah.
It's important to dive with people that know my photography and I know their behavior underwater, and that we have a common language that we can understand. There are, of course, we use sign language underwater, but it's all about debriefing and diving together a lot, unless you would have underwater communication. That would kind of make it almost like cheating, because it would be super convenient with underwater communication and to be able to talk to the whole team and say, I could improve the images crazy much if I would have underwater communication. But I kind of like the idea of not talking during diving, because it's so nice after the dive when you come up and you can talk about everything that happened and what went wrong, what went great. It's a nice feeling to not take it down there. You do right next time then instead. It's like that's how I see it. So it's all about having a very well orchestrated team, I would say, and briefings.
One of the words I've applied to my short, insignificant compared to you diving experience is the word visitor. I always felt or feel like a visitor beneath the waves. It's not my world, it's somebody else's world. Yeah. I'm thinking about the creatures that are within, the enormous, wonderful creatures that you find below the surface. And I'm going to pick an obvious one first of all. I would imagine sharks are something you should be aware of. Not necessarily frightened of, but should be aware of. Barracuda, who like fingers. Eels that hide within things like rocks and crevices between decks, I'm sure. What sort of creatures do you have to be particularly aware of when you're in somebody else's backyard?
Yeah, so if you're like diving in a wreck, let's say in the Red Sea or something, of course I'm not super fond of meeting like a 1.5 meter big moray eel swimming free and like coming towards me. I know they're not dangerous to humans, but it's just a very unpleasant. I don't mind if they're laying still in their hole and they're just like waiting for prey or something. But if they're free swimming, of course, inside a wreck, it's not very nice. When it comes to sharks, for me anyway, and it's been like that since I saw my first shark, you just get fascinated. Like you think you would get scared the first time you see a shark. And I've been pushed away by tiger sharks that are 3-4 meters long. You're just fascinated because they move so gracefully. They're beautiful to watch, and they are usually very. I've only seen calm sharks so far. I haven't been around aggressive sharks. I'm sure there are situations where if there's a feeding going on or something like that, but I avoid those kind of situations. I try to see the animals in their natural environment instead.
I have to mention something that is within your Instagram feed, shark finning. Where you're talking about the issue and asking people to sign the petition. Tell me about shark finning and tell me about your work really as a conservationist in that respect.
Yeah, no, shark finning, I don't know super much about it, except that I think that it's a horrible way of killing sharks by just cutting their fins off and then throwing the shark back in the water, and they just die, they suffocate. But of course they would die anyway, but they suffocate because they need to move to be able to get oxygen into their bloodstream. So that's horrible. And when I started seeing this Stop Finning EU campaign, I was like, of course I'm going to support this. And since I have a big following on Instagram, I thought the least I can do is to repost shark images and ask people to sign the petition, which people did. And I think we needed to get to 1 million signs in the EU Parliament for them to bring up the question. And I think we ended up at 1.3 million, which was amazing. Extremely fascinating and very good. And that's to ban shark finning in the EU. And I think that's great. And from what I understand, I think it's already banned in the UK. The UK was much earlier on this. And now I hope the EU is following UK's great example.
And I was surprised that in the EU, it was happening in the EU at all, actually, because you tend to think of this
me too.
As elsewhere in the world. You don't think at all that it would be happening on this continent.
Yeah, I was very shocked, actually. I thought it actually wasn't allowed in the European Union already, but I really hope that I haven't heard anything more since then, but I think that it will probably end up with a ban. I'm pretty certain that's the way it's going, and that's so good.
And the finning is for what? Shark fin soup is the first thing.
Shark fin soup, which is more of it doesn't taste anything, is what I've heard. Like, and especially, it's more of a tradition, and it's more of a thing that I think just because it is shark, it's going to give you strength and a happy marriage or something like that. So it's a cultural thing from what I understand. It's not necessarily about the flavor. Might be something with the texture, but I'm sure there's hundreds of other supplements that could do the same texture. So I think it should be banned today.
There was, I know you don't watch Hollywood too much, but I'm going to mention another film which completely changed the way I looked at the ocean, certainly in terms of photography. A 2020 film. I watched it in lockdown called My Octopus Teacher. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
I'm aware of it, and I haven't seen it. And everybody said I need to see it. I have a long list of things I need to see.
Well, look, when you do get to see that film, because I don't think you have to see it to answer the question that I have for you, but Craig Foster, who's this filmmaker, this incredible man, struck up this relationship with an octopus off the coast of Cape Town. But for him, the meeting of the octopus and the diving was this mental health thing, being in the water. He was having an incredible tough time in his commercial work. And so he turned to the water and immersed himself in it and found this octopus, and then this film grew out of that. And I wonder if it's the same sort of feeling for you. You've talked about this quiet, this silence that you achieve through being in the water. What does it feel like to you? What is this feeling? What is this emotion?
I think it's maybe, in my case, I think it's when you get underwater, you can't talk anymore. Nobody around you can talk, but you're still experiencing something together with someone, but nobody can say anything really. And the sense of focus you have to have on safety and also what you see. And of course, the excitement about maybe the pictures you might be able to take is also a thing. I think it's just the quietness and the focus is actually very, especially in today's world where you're connected to internet like 24/7. I mean, being underwater, it's a relief.
Yeah.
It's I think for me, it's turned into my meditation, even though it's my work that's happening in that state of mind. But it's very meditative to be underwater for me. And like I said before, it's so nice to come up and relive these 2 hours that you just spent underwater and talk about everything that happened and what went wrong and what went good and did you see that or did you do that, or it's I don't know, I've learned to live that way, and for me that's natural, and I definitely love the whole lifestyle around it. It's super nice.
But 100 dives a year through decades and decades, are you still amazed today by what you see as that first time when you free dived in Crete and thought, oh, this is good?
I'm more picky with what I choose to dive, of course. But I still like I said, I just started mine diving 2-3 years ago, and we have superb mines in Sweden. I know we have great ones in the UK too. I'm going to Belgium and Germany in 2 weeks' time to dive some mines there. And I know there's a new one in Italy that's supposed to be super cool. I mean, there's so many new places to explore that's so accessible to me. 2-hour drive and I can be in a couple of different mines, 3 hours maybe. So it doesn't have to be like the coolest shipwreck or whatever. Sometimes you just need like a crack in the mountain, or you just any kind of pattern, and then you can create really cool stuff, I think. Or maybe even just blue water, but you choose to, just with composition, how you place the diver or free diver or the sunbeams can already turn into a great image. I mean, people in photography usually forget to use the whole framing. That's I'm very inspired by, I don't know if you know this photographer, Anton Carbin. He did a lot of music videos for Depeche Mode, like Enjoy the Silence and stuff like that. I mean, that's an inspiration to me. His minimalistic shooting. Yes. He's been a huge inspiration for me. Yeah.
Just finally, could you imagine a life without a wet or dry suit and camera housing?
Yeah, I could, for sure. But I would do more landscape photography. Because I do like exploring and seeing the world, I should say, and seeing spaces. It wouldn't be as fun, I think, though, because I think the underwater world is so fascinating in so many ways. And like I said, it's my calm place to be, where it's kind of meditating to be underwater and it gets silent. And I'm diving closed circuit rebreather since 7 years, which means that we don't make bubbles unless we go up, so it's totally quiet. We get extremely extended bottom times. Say if we're diving 25 meters, I can probably dive 2 hours without going into decompression, and so on. So, and even at depth, the gas logistics, or if you're doing cave diving, mine diving, you can go kind of further. It depends on your bailout gases, but yeah, it's a great tool. So since I started rebreather diving in 2015, a lot of things has changed to the positive for the photography. And I also realized one thing that I didn't know while I was shooting while bubbling, doing open circuit diving. It wasn't until like 3, 4, 5 dives after my rebreather course I realized that the bubbles have always stressed me out, because the noise, and it just makes a lot of noise. It makes me lose focus of the photography. I didn't realize that until after, when I got the quietness. So the rebreather is a fantastic tool for photography, for me anyway, because the bubbles were very disturbing.
And my sincere thanks to Alex for sharing his story, and of course some pictures which you will see on the show page today. I was walking along just a moment ago while we were listening to Alex talking, obviously, and a wonderful old I'm going to call him an old seafarer, long grey, I'm going to paint a picture for you, long grey beard. He wouldn't let me take his picture. Long grey beard. I don't know, he just looked like you'd been at sea for 40 years, 50, 60 years. And my pirate accent is falling well below par today, I realise that. I'll have to do a bit more, get off my land, and it will come back again. But I said to him, how are you? He said, near enough. It is my boat. And I said, oh, I'm sure, it's nice. He said, what are you, the lock keeper? Because I had a clipboard with me. And I said, no. Before I had a chance to really explain about the podcasting, and he kind of turned tail. And I said, can I take your picture? No, I don't think you should. And I thought, I wonder why I shouldn't. Probably just because he didn't want a portrait. But I started inventing fanciful stories in my mind. He's on the run, so he is. Anyway, for links to Alex, they'll be on the show page today with the pictures, as I say. And then, of course, for links to other photographers that you've heard from or about today, Instagrams and websites, and things that we've mentioned, go to today's show page on photographydaily.show, or follow, of course, the link in the podcast player app that will also take you there. I'll tell you what's on more tomorrow in a moment, but it's play out song time, and I needed to find a song that said something about time, actually, because it feels to me like we were talking today about photography being something that really does slow those moments down, particularly when you're underneath the water on one of those fabulous adventures that Alex finds himself on. We were talking about, of course, breathing. We were talking about finding solace. We were talking about all those meditational things that so often float our boat. I'm sorry, the water references keep on coming, keep on flowing. Oh, Neil, please stop. So will you forgive me for playing another one of my favourites? Oh, all right, Neil. OK. Just this time, until the next time. But it does seem very pertinent. It's called This Life of Time, and it's by an artist called Bayo, which I'll play in a moment. Is that OK? Oh, go on, Neil. Super. So that's going to be the play-out song. But we still need a postscript, of course, to the show. And I've chosen this from David Allen Harvey, who's a wonderful photographer. I really like to try and get David on the show. He has many inspirational things to say about photography. This is a great way to think about making your pictures, I think. David said, "Don't shoot what it looks like, shoot what it feels like."
It's all in our hands, this life of time that's given to us all. It gathers round each night, each morn. We watch it pass and grow. It is all in our hands, it is all in our hands. With every field and rising sea, can hear the sounds of all, and with every change we'll always be where hope's not lost but found. It is all in our hands, it is all in our hands. It is all in our hands, it is all in our hands. And we know the change will surely come. Maybe one more trip around the sun, but we'll gather here where land meets sea, where we can be as one. And we know the change will surely come. Maybe one more trip around the sun, and we'll gather here where land meets sea, where we can be as one. It is all in our hands, and we know the change will surely come. This life of time, we can be. It's all in our hands, it is all in our hands.
That's Bayo and This Life of Time. And that's it for this week. My thanks to Alex Dawson, Simon Baxter, Bernadette Russell, Kara Mew and MPB.com, plus Ryan Katsanis and all those who are patrons, which you can join through the link on the website photographydaily.show, just up there in the top right-hand corner. And for those wonderful supporters who are, thank you. Tomorrow is The More Show. It's your own weekend oasis of a little extra for your kind supporters, I say. And we're going to be talking about, amongst other things, overzealous photographers and being kind as a, kind of profession with Bernadette Russell. Links and further research to what you've heard will be on the show page today, and you'll find a handy link in your podcast player app to go there. My thanks too to Neil Ford, often in the engine room, Emily Renier and Andrea Gilpin. If you could do something this week for me, I would be immeasurably thankful, and that is to share the show, spreading the word about the community that we have. Just a little mention in your Facebook or on Twitter, Or if you're a member of a super photographic community, or even, I suppose, walkers community online, perhaps you could share the podcast show page within your group. And I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you next time.
Excuse me. Car. There you are. Of course I'm here. I'm always here. I am omnipotent. A bit like Buddha, only with wheels. Don't go upsetting people now. Anyway, haven't you forgotten something? No. Don't think I have. Think of lightning, as Alex calls it. Lightning. Yes. Lighting, yes. Harold Eugene Edgerton. I promised to tell you who he was. Yes, a light bulb moment, I think you'll find. Thank you. Don't start the cliches again. Enough of those from me today. Yes, it is Edgerton. He introduced to the world of photography the electronic flash tube in 1931 and went on to show how good it was by making several iconic photographs, such as one of the bullet bursting through an apple. You read that bit on Wikipedia. I did. I have to admit. Of course, it's not the first flash lamp. That's an electronic flash that he invented. Anyway, put that one in your back pocket for a pub quiz sometime. Thank you, Carl. Well done for the reminder. Should we go home? Yes. Via the coffee shop, please.
Photography Daily is a Loading Zone production.